Welcome to this explainer. Today we're taking a really captivating and completely impartial look at some eerily accurate predictions from way back in the 1980s. We're going to explore this totally fascinating framework that actually attempts to explain our modern digital burnout. We'll look at the rise of artificial systems and figure out exactly how technology might be systematically degrading our human traditions. So it's a journey that takes us from the physical body right down to the very fabric of society.
Okay, let's dive into this. We're starting with a pretty haunting warning from Michio Kushi. Now, he was a highly controversial figure who actually spoke these words way back in 1984. And, at the time, people totally laughed. But reading this quote today, well, his thesis anchors our entire exploration. It's this idea that humanity is slowly transforming into a totally new tech-controlled species. And in the process, we're leaving behind the very concepts of heritage, family, and tradition.
So here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, echoes from the 1980s. Then, the artificial human. Third, the death of tradition. Fourth, the subversion of society. And finally, reclaiming human connection.
Section 1. Echoes from the 1980s.
To truly grasp the sheer scale of Kushi's theory, we need to look at the historical timeline he laid out decades ago. It's kind of wild to see how his controversial framework perfectly mirrors the reality we're living in the 2020s. He basically mapped out this distinct progression of human degradation. Starting around 1980, he claimed we entered the bio-nationation age, which was all about the physical body. Then, by 2000, we shifted into the psycho-nationation age, targeting the mind. And by 2020, he predicted an ultra-psycho-nationation, where technology and algorithms just totally bypass human will. But his ultimate and honestly most unsettling prediction is that by 2033, the sheer accumulation of all this data and artificialization leads to a profound shift, or even the end of civilization as we know it.
Section 2. The artificial human. To understand how artificial systems fundamentally alter our physical state, we really have to look at this concept of bioation. Kushi defined this as the rapid degeneration and artificialization of the human body. He pointed straight at ultra-processed foods, constant stress, and our increasing reliance on artificial materials placed inside us. The source material actually highlights some fascinating work by Dr. Robert Becker from the 1960s. He discovered that human bones behave almost like an electrical system, generating tiny DC currents to heal without scarring. The big concern raised here is that by introducing foreign conductive materials into our bodies, we might actually be disrupting our own natural electrical healing signals. Crazy, right?
And this brilliantly illustrates that physical shift. We're looking at a massive 51.6% drop in average global sperm concentration between 1973 and 2018, which was cited in a major 2022 meta-analysis. As natural fertility declines, which is often linked to plastics, chemicals, and just modern lifestyles in general, artificial reproductive technologies have to step in. Kushi controversially compared this whole thing to the cattle industry. He warned that when natural reproduction weakens, technology inevitably enters deeper into the process, moving us further and further away from our biological traditions.
So once the body is altered, the framework moves right to the mind. This is psychonation. Just look at modern society today. Millions of people depend on pills just to sleep, or stimulants just to function. Attention itself is literally collapsing under the weight of short videos that constantly hit the brain with stimulation. Even our food has been scientifically engineered to hijack our natural attention and create dependency. Kukuchki argued that all of this makes human behavior chemically and technologically controlled. It completely replaces our natural mental state with chaos and anxiety.
Which leads us to the deeply unsettling final stage, ultra-psychonation. This isn't just about being distracted anymore, it's about algorithms learning and predicting your behavior before you even realize what's happening. In this stage, natural family teachings, organic life experiences, and inherited traditions, they are bypassed entirely. Instead, human identity, desires, and beliefs are shaped directly by screens, viral trends, and artificial intelligence, pretty much from birth.
Section 3. The death of tradition.
So, if the individual is being physically and psychologically altered like this, what happens to society? How do these changes systematically degrade our cultural traditions? Well, traditionally, human bonds were built on direct organic exchange. Neighbors helping neighbors, direct trade, community compromise. But today, those natural links are being replaced by artificial structures, like bureaucratic bodies, NGOs, and digital middlemen. The source notes this truly staggering statistic. Between 1999 and 2010, internet intermediaries grew from a quarter to over a third of the US GDP. We are increasingly paying a third party just to interact with each other,
We're replacing organic community with commercialized transactions.
As those organic community ties break down, traditional spiritual anchors are fading. Church attendance, for example, dropped from 42% to 30% in the US over the last 2 decades. And where exactly did all that energy go? To the stars, apparently. The astrology market has exploded to $14 billion globally. And the wellness industry? That's ballooned to a massive $1.5 trillion. So traditional, community-based heritage is quietly being replaced by massive, highly individualized commercial consumption.
And that consumption is largely driven by this number right here. $700 billion, that was the global advertising spend in 2023 alone. Think about that. This entire system is practically engineered to manufacture urgency. It bombards the average person with up to 10,000 ads a single day, and they all convey one single message. What you have is not enough. Instead of connecting meaningfully with our traditions or with each other, the system ensures people consume endlessly, constantly chasing this manufactured feeling of lack.
Section 4. The subversion of society. To understand how a culture actually gets to this point, the source introduces the framework of Yuri Bezmenov. He was a former KGB propaganda operative who defected back in the 1970s. He outlined a very specific theory on how disconnecting people from their traditions makes a nation incredibly vulnerable. According to Bezmenov, subversion doesn't require blowing up bridges or military force. It targets these 6 critical pillars of society to erode our natural human bonds. By ridiculing religion, shifting education away from pragmatic skills, bureaucratizing social life, and radicalizing labor and law enforcement, a society's foundational trust is completely broken. The goal in his theory is to replace organic community compromise with manufactured anger and endless division.
Bezmenov broke this down into a chilling 4-step framework. First is demoralization. This takes about 15 to 20 years, basically enough time to educate one generation to reject its own traditions. Then comes destabilization, where relations radicalize and compromise becomes literally impossible. This inevitably leads to a crisis, where an exhausted society actually demands a savior. Finally, normalization occurs, and ironically, that's when the new rulers forcefully eliminate the very radicals who helped them gain power in the first place. Bezmenov compared this whole process to Japanese judo. You don't fight a society directly, you just take its existing frustrations, grab the momentum, and guide it until it destroys itself.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the modern internet supercharges Bezmenov's process. You don't even need a foreign agent to create subversion anymore. The algorithms just do it for free. It happens through tribal reinforcement. When you see an opinion with 50,000 likes, your brain automatically registers it as a social signal that the tribe has already spoken. It completely bypasses critical thinking. The algorithm amplifies the most extreme angry voices, doing the heavy lifting of destabilization entirely automatically.
Section 5. Reclaiming human connection. Okay, let's take a breath. We've explored some incredibly heavy, totally overwhelming concepts today about how technology and artificial systems might be degrading our traditions. So, what is the proposed resolution to all of this? We return to Michio Kushi for this pivotal thought. His core thesis was that the absolute only defense against becoming a completely tech-dictated, artificial species is personal awareness. It's recognizing the complexity of the world and making a conscious choice to awaken to it. If individuals don't awaken, control simply centralizes. But if they do, human agency is preserved.
So what does that awakening actually look like in practice? The source outlines a very clear, grounded takeaway. To resist the noise, individuals have to consciously step away from the algorithmic feed. Slow down, spend less, sit with silence long enough to hear your own thoughts before a screen tells you what to feel. It's really about reclaiming your personal responsibility and reconnecting with a higher purpose. It's about remembering the very traditions and quiet humanity that the modern digital machine is designed to make you forget.
Which leaves us with this final thought. The systems we've explored today are highly efficient at radicalizing emotions and commodifying traditions. But your actions, your choices to connect organically, are still entirely your own. So I'll leave you with this question. In a world engineered to control your attention and rewrite your traditions, what are you doing today to prove you are still fully human? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you next time.